This is the second OGT worksheet. The producer has $2 million budgeted for costs related to filming movies. A movie on location. She estimated the cost to be C equals 108,000 in plus 175,000, where C stands for the cost, which we're going to stick in 2 million. That's the most that she can spend, so I'm going to put that in place of C right there. And 108,000 is how much it's going to cost her per day, which is in. 175,000 is whatever the other things are that's added on. We solve this, subtract 175,000 from both sides. It leaves us with 1,825,000 equals 108,000 times n. Divide both sides by 108,000. And use your calculator to do that. You end up with 182,500 divided by 108,000. Ends up being something like 16.89. Well, to stay within budget, it's 8.9, even though it's bigger than 0.5. To stay within budget, that means that she can only do these days. So the most days she could do is 16 days. Scientists studying the effects of rainfall on the height of certain species of sunflowers. Scatter plot shows the results. What conclusion do the data support? Or what conclusion does it support? The species of sunflowers will not grow over 7 feet tall. Well, that's not right, because you got a bunch of them up here that are over 7 feet. So that one's not right. With over 4 centimeters of rain per week, the species of sunflower will grow over 12 feet. Well, we don't even know what happens out here when they get more than 4 centimeters of rain, so we can't say that. If the rainfall is less than 2 centimeters, then the species of sunflower can still reach its maximum height. Less than 2 would be over here, and the maximum height would be up here, and there's none over here that reach that, so that one would be wrong. This species of sunflower grows tallest when there are between 2.5 and 3 centimeters. So if we go from 2.5 to 3, those are the tallest ones, so it'd be D. Jennifer wants to close off a rectangular area of her lawn so she can leave her dog outside. She buys enough fence to enclose 252 square feet. The length of her enclosure is 21 feet. Well, formula for area of a rectangle is length times width. The area this time is 252, so we put 252 on that side. Equals the length is 21, and W, divide both sides by 21. You end up with 252 divided by 21. 21 again, 25 once. 25 or 21 again to 42 twice. Comes out even when you subtract there. You end up with 12 feet. Adam was going to buy a lawnmower from Lawn Care Depot for $169 less 10% a 10% discount. He saw the same mower on sale at Tractors R Us. Their mower originally cost $210 and was on sale for a third off. In your answer document, and what I like to do on these is list out here what all they want me to find. Determine the sale price. So we want the sale price at both places. Show your work, so we're going to show our work, and then we're going to tell which is best. Now, first thing I got to do is at Lawn Care Depot, we're going to figure out the sale price. The way we do that is take 169 times the 10%, but you got to change the 10% into a decimal by bumping the decimal over 2, so 0.10. When you multiply 0.10 times 169, you end up with 16.9. Well, we want that to look like money, so we're going to add a 0 back here. So it's $16.90. This is the amount off. So you have to take the original price, $169, minus $16.90. We have to borrow here. Oops, not there. We have to borrow here. That's 0, that's 1, that's 2. 6 minus 1 is 5, 1. So that's the final, that's the cost at lawn care, at the lawn care depot. Now we want to find the cost at Tractors R Us. And we take, originally cost $210, we times that by the 1/3. When you're multiplying a whole number times a fraction, you just multiply by the top and then divide by the bottom. 210 times 1 is 210, then divided by 3. 210 divided by 3 is 70. Well, the tractor's not going to cost $70. That's the amount off we're getting. So then we take the 210, subtract off 70, we get $140. This is the cost at Tractors R Us. So we've got our two sale prices, we've shown our work. Now we just need to tell which one's got the better one. Tractors R Us has the better price. Teresa's playing a new board game. She must spin the spinner twice and get the same number both times to place her piece on the board. The diagram shows the result of her first spin, so she got a 2 on her first spin. Each number on the spinner has the same chance of occurring. What is the probability that Teresa's next spin will allow her to move a piece onto the board? Well, the first spin doesn't make any difference. All we care about is that she gets a 2 on the second spin. And with probability, it's always favorable outcomes over total outcomes. So her favorable outcomes, well, the only thing she can get to get out is a 1, or I'm sorry, is a 2. So there's 1 of those. And there's 4 possible outcomes, so that's the total. That won't reduce any, so it's B 1/4. Which graph represents a linear function? When it says linear, that means it's got to be a line. The only one that makes a line, and out of these 4 is C. Alicia is 5 feet tall. She casts a shadow that's 6.5 feet tall. So she's 5 feet, 6.5 feet. I'm going to make it 6.5. There's some sculpture, and it casts a 12-foot shadow. What you do when you have stuff like this, you're using similar triangles here, and you set up a proportion. Her 5 foot compares to, we don't know this, so we'll call that X. 5 foot compares to the height of the sculpture, the same as 6.5, her shadow compares to the sculpture shadow. We cross multiply, you end up with 6.5x equals 60. Divide both sides by 6.5, and you end up with x equals 9.2 something around that, rounded off a little bit. Well, then the sculpture is about 9 feet tall. Gary's planning on buying a stereo system priced at $840 through an installment plan. The plan requires a down payment of $190 and 24 payments of $32.35 each month. How much more will he pay if he uses the installment plan rather than paying cash? So if he paid cash, he was going to pay $840, and then we're going to find the installment plan, how much he pays, and we'll subtract those two, and that'll tell us how much more. To figure out the installment plan, we know he pays $190 up front, and then he takes 24 times the $32.35 each monthly payment. We figure this out, 190 plus 24 times 32.35, and this gives us 966.4. Again, we want this to look like money, so we're going to put a 0 on there. So that's how much he pay on the installment plan. But we don't want to know how much he pay on it. We want to know how much more he pays if he does it. So we add some zeros over here and we got subtract. Looks like you pay $126.46 extra, which would be B. Which graphical representation would be most useful in comparing the change in average earnings of male employees versus average earnings of female employees over the course of a 50-year period? Circle graph usually goes by percentages. This isn't really going to, the information that we have is not really going to be good as far as percentages goes. A double line graph is something that looks like this. It sort of gives two lines and shows how things go up or down across time. So that might be alright. Box and whisker plot. Box and whisker plots just shows what's in the middle and what's on the ends. It's got the box in the middle. It shows what's on the ends, so that probably won't really help us. Back-to-back stem and leaf plot is where you put your stems in the middle, and then you do your leaves on each side. That probably won't help a whole lot, so a double bar or a double line graph is probably best in this case. Miss Foyle told Yolanda that her test had 38 questions or 38 problems worth 100 points. Each test problem is worth either 2 or 5 points. Yolanda wanted to determine how many 2 and how many 5 there are. In your answer document, determine how many questions of each point value there are. So we need to know how many 2-point questions there are and how many 5-point questions there are. We want to show our work, and that's going to give us the full points. So the way we're going to do this, you could think it through and try to figure it out that way, but you need to show something, show your work, how you got your answers. I'm going to actually set it up algebraically. The way we do it algebraically is I'm going to let x equal the number of 2-point questions, y equal the number of 5-point questions. Normally we don't like to put x and y in the same problem because that makes it harder, but on this one we have to. We know that the 2-point questions plus the 5-point questions equals a total of 38 questions, and we know as far as points go that all of them total up to be 100. Well, to find the points for the 2-point questions, just take 2 times the number, which is 2 times x. To find the points for the 5-point questions, you take 5 times the number, which would be 5 times y. Now we use systems of equations. The systems of equations, remember, 3 different ways to solve it. Probably the easiest way to do this one, because they're both in standard form, is to use elimination. And when I say elimination, what I mean is we're going to eliminate one of the variables, and we do that by making one of the variables opposites. I'm going to do the x's. I'm going to take this first equation and multiply everything in there by -2. -2 times x is -2x. That makes the x opposites there, so they're going to cancel each other out. -2 times y is -2y. -2 times 38 is -76. And we just add the columns straight down. The x's cancel out. The y's, you end up with 3y. Here you end up with 24. Divide both sides by 3. You end up with y equals 8. Well, y is the number of 5-point questions, so there's 8 5-point questions. Make sure we write this out so they can see it. And then to get the 2-point questions, we just go back. We know that there was 38 total questions, so that means there's going to be 30 2-point questions. Figure at the right is a net of a 3-dimensional object. All a net is when you take a 3D object, some kind of shape, and you cut it up and lay it out flat. If we were to fold this back up, you got these 2 shapes, which are going to be your bases. They're triangles. Then you got 3 rectangles. If we fold it back up, it'd be a rectangular prism. Letter D. Or I'm sorry, not a rectangular prism, a triangular prism. Jennifer is designing a quilt. Pattern for one is shown in the rectangle. Triangles AB or ADC and EBF are similar. AB is equal to BC, so this segment right here is equal to this segment. So we mark them. What is the length of EF? We look at the big triangle here. We know it's a right triangle, and we can use Pythagorean's theorem to find the length of AC. We're going to do 8 squared plus 6 squared equals C squared. That's 64 plus 36 equals C squared. That's 100 equals C squared. Take the square root of both sides. You end up with C equals 10. That means this whole side over here is 10. Well, that whole thing is 10, and each part is 5. And once we have that, we know that these two are similar. Well, we need to be able to set up a proportion, and we need to find a side in this other triangle. And the way this works, if we look across through here, if this whole side over here is 8, then this part from E to B has to be 4. If this whole thing is 6, this part has to be 3. We could use Pythagorean's theorem again, or we could set up a proportion where we set up corresponding sides, like this 8 compares to the 4, the same as the 10, this whole side here, compares to EF, what we're looking for. And you could make that an X or any other variable. We cross multiply, you get 8 times EF equals 40. Divide both sides by 8. You end up with EF equals 5. Might be easier ways you could have done that if you just thought it through. An aquarium, so I'm going to draw an aquarium here. Something like that maybe. 60 centimeters long, 20 centimeters wide, 30 centimeters deep. To find the volume of that aquarium, we just take length times width times height. 60 times 20 times 30. That gives us 36,000. And whenever you're finding volume, it's always cubic units, so centimeters cubed. When we don't want the whole thing, we only want 2/3 full, so up to about there or something. So what you do is you take that 36,000 times 2/3, and you multiply times the whole number times the top, then divide by the bottom. So 36,000 times 2, and divided by 3, you end up with 24,000. So it's 24,000 centimeters cubed. Jack has a box with 10 unlabeled computer CD-ROMs. 2 are music, 3 are game CDs, 5 are picture CDs. If Jack randomly selects a CD from the box, what his value represents probability, he selects a music CD or a picture CD. Remember, it's always favorable over total is your probability. Well, favorable this time would be the picture and the music together. So music is 2, picture is 5, so that'd be 7 is your favorable. And there's 10 total in the box. That won't reduce, so 7 out of 10. First 5 rows of number array are shown below. Several different ways you could do this one. The way I'm going to do it, we want to go out to the 8th row, so that's not too far out, so I'm just going to list out each of the next rows. Here we end up with 15, so we go 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, then 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and we want to find the total of this row right here. So it's just 29 plus 30 plus 31 plus 32 plus 33 plus 34 plus 35 plus 36 comes out to equal 260. Now there's many other ways you could have done that. You could have just figured out a pattern and found the total that way. It might have been easier.